all of the San Juan Mountains are affected. All of the Gore Range or Holy Cross Range or Central Mountains are affected by these events. It's not basin to basin. It's really range to range, and in some cases, statewide. And these dust rates are probably 5 to 6 times higher than they would have been prior to Western settlement of the region. And we know that the plateau is the dominant source of the dust. Then we know that when dust is present at or even near, even within a few inches of the snow surface, that these albedos the reduced albedo is going to result in 2 or 3 times more melt energy available to the snowpack compared to the effects of air temperature only, or in the absence of dust. That snowpack is going to ripen, and some of you know something about snow hydrology, may be familiar with that term, a ripening snowpack. The snowpack contains, so to speak, cold content during the winter. In other words, the snowpack temperatures are well below the melting point, but over the course of the late winter and early spring, that cold content is reduced to the point where the snow becomes isothermal, all at 0 degrees throughout. And at that point, then, any extra energy available to the snowpack is going to produce melt. It's not going to be consumed in raising the temperature of the snowpack. So when you've got dust in the snow, even in February, some extra energy is being absorbed. It's going to go into the snowpack and start that process of bringing the snowpack to isothermal. That's going to happen sooner, and then all of the extra energy at the snowpack surface is driving melt. And compared to the case of no dust or just air temperatures. And last, the net effect is that the melt rates accelerate, and the timing of snow all gone, or the advancing the date of snow all gone by as much as 50 days, what we experienced at our study sites last year, compared to the no dust or just air temperature case. There are things we don't know yet, and these are also important and also begging for more study. We've been focused on the deposition end of this process, not on the emission end out in the desert. So there's a lot to learn about what's going on in the source area and why one year is dusty and the next year isn't. And like I said earlier, so far this year, we've had only one event in the San Juan Mountains. That was in October, and none since, compared to 12 last year and 8 by this time last year. And we are not exactly sure why that's the case, but there is pretty compelling evidence this year that that is because the source area has been snow covered for a lot of the winter, and or it's just now melting out and the soils are still moist. We'll see as that landscape dries out this spring whether or not we finally do get some dust. Then we don't really know much about the trend in dust emission and deposition. Our history of observation is so short, we just cannot speak to trends, even though last year seemed to be pretty exceptional. We don't know if that's part of a trend or that's an anomaly. So we do not say, and we cannot say, that it's getting dustier. We do not know that. All we know is the data from the sediment cores showing that the rates now are substantially higher than they were prior to Western settlement. We also really cannot speak at all to, well, what are the factors in the Colorado Plateau that are generating the dust? Who's to blame for all this dust, you know? Is it oil and gas? Is it grazing? Motorized recreation? We really have no idea of the relative shares of responsibility for disturbing that desert soil. We do know that that is the problem, that when you disturb that cryptobiotic soil surface, you do make that material available for wind transport. That is clear, but we cannot say what factors are altering the availability of soil out there. I get asked a lot, well, what about climate change? You know, is climate change increasing the amount of dust available? We don't know. What we can say is that drought in that landscape does not help the plant community recover from the effects of drought. And of course, plant density will help inhibit the availability of dust. So prolonged drought will only slow the recovery of that, the soil surface itself and the plant communities that help pin down the dust. And the last thing we don't know is what's going to happen, you know, from here on out this year. We can reasonably assume that over the course of the next month or two, the desert will slowly dry out. But we can't predict that there will be storms with enough energy to actually mobilize the dust and then deliver it up here. So we'll just have to wait and see. If we do see dust later this spring, it presents a whole new scenario that we haven't seen yet before. And that is that it may end up landing on your Vail Mountain snowpack that is already in the lowest quartile of observed snowpack, snow water equivalent, in the period of record for that snow-tell site. We're way down, you're way down in here. And these different colored plots are representing a variety of scenarios from most likely to least likely future accumulation of snowpack. If we have dust on the snowpack right about here and it stays at the surface, you know, it could produce by far the earliest date of snow all gone ever observed in this watershed at this site. That's not a good scenario. And on the sort of other end of the spectrum, we just drove through the Rio Grande Valley where the snowpack would be up in here in the upper quartile. And snow cover as far down valley as Creed is 1 meter deep in that valley. If we see additional accumulation, which is likely, typical maximum SWE is around early April, and then dust on snow, and then dry, sunny weather, they could have some fairly severe flooding issues with that kind of snow cover. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And if we have no dust at all this spring, that will also be really exciting for us. It'll be great for water managers. It'll prolong your meager runoff to the maximum extent possible. And we'll have a sort of two endpoints on recent behavior from last year and apparently extreme behavior to no dust at all.